Welcome to the Evolve Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Evolve Podcast is an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. Today on the show, we have Chris Mcpherson. Chris is an Ironman triathlete and a small business owner. Now, Chris, I understand you run a stone and tile work business, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been doing that business for?
I just celebrated 20 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started that business?
Right at about 30.
Mm-hmm. Where were you at that point in your life?
At that point in my life, I was no longer pursuing music, going on tour and things like that, and learned the trade and wanted to move forward in that trade.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of friends that were excellent carpenters, and they wound up needing a tile guy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I was off and running after basically apprenticing for Steve Herndon prior to that.
Okay, awesome. And was Steve someone that you met through the music scene?
Absolutely. And most everyone probably met him. He drove a vintage VW station wagon that had a killer stereo in it, and he would play the Melvins and deliver for Piccola's Pizza. So awesome. Steve was at every really good show in Richmond.
Yeah.
And I met him legitimately as a cook at Havana 59, and he was working on a restaurant right across the alley.
Cool. So how did you get involved with the local music scene? Was that something that started at an early age for you?
It did. I knew Chris Wade from Groove. It was Groove, but earlier was As It Stands in the Yorktown hardcore scene. And Chris was kind of like a big brother to me, and he introduced me to like Slayer, Rain and Blood, the Misfits, all the really good stuff. And around 1993, 94, I moved from Pittsburgh. I had been in the Art Institute of Pittsburgh there.
Awesome.
And on a phone call with him, telling him how much I hated the snow there, he said, "You should come to VCU and go to the AFO program." And so I transferred and lived with him starting in 1994. And man, to be able to walk from the apartment on Laurel Street and go see amazing shows at the Metro, or, Twisters, it was just amazing.
And of course, the Richmond music scene has evolved in its own way, since then. Twisters becoming Nancy Ray Gun and Strange Matter, and now there's nothing there. And the local punk and hardcore scene, I think, has gone more underground as of late, with shows at DIY venues like the Warehouse, which has been a staple of the Richmond scene for years, in various iterations of it. But yeah, it's in a much different place now. So what was like the first band that you joined when you came to Richmond?
So that was a band called More Fire for Burning People. It was with Brian Landis, Curtis Payne, and Marty Key. And that was pretty cool because before then I hadn't really played in a band.
Yeah.
And with those guys, they lived at the Whirlybird House on Monument.
Okay.
And so there were all these amazing house shows going on over there. And so that was the first band that I played in. And then eventually I left that and started a band called Ars Moriendi with Brian and Johnny from Alabama Thunder Pussy.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was amazing because of the hard, heavy doom kind of sound that you could achieve, and to meet all these like-minded people that wanted to create that. It was just like the lights were on, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And I know that before you've gotten into this stage of your life where, you know, you're doing these triathlons, you know, and Ironman events, you weren't in the state of health that you're in now.
Nowhere near it.
So let's go back to that time.
Sure.
Tell me about like what your lifestyle was like at that point when you were, you know, living much differently than you are today.
So when I first got to Richmond in 1994, I was way into working out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was proud of that. And that lasted for a few years until playing a lot more music and running around and all the craziness.
Yeah.
You know, and the pictures of margaritas at the Mexican restaurant on Cary Street, or Rosa's, where everybody's friend worked. They would cut the tab in half. And, you know, it got pretty crazy.
Yeah. So you were, you know, partying a lot. You were in the music scene a lot. And,
Yeah.
you know, I know, you know, Richmond has like an interesting music scene where some people are straight edge, but not everyone's straight edge. You know, people still party and like drink and hang out at shows. Were you like? It sounds like you weren't around with like the straight edge crowd as much.
No, I knew Matt Bedford and a few of the guys that were mainly in that group, and every now and again I would see a show, but I knew people in that were playing in bands that would open up for Four Walls Falling. Met Taylor in 1994 through my friend Richard Polk.
Taylor Steele?
Yeah.
Okay, I've actually met him before. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, and 1994 they lived right across from the Paramount drugstore on Laurel Street. And so just walking from class from VCU, I met Richard and Taylor and a few others. And then you go to house shows and it's crazy. You know, it's just great.
Do you still keep in touch with any of those guys?
I see Taylor here and there.
Yeah.
I think we have a lunch date at some point. But we'll see.
Cool. Did you play in Four Walls Falling?
No.
No? Okay. But you were friends with them and you like were around like at that time?
Here and there, yes.
Yeah.
Very good friends with Bill Thiedman, who was a bass player in Four Walls Falling in the past. And it's just crazy how you just wind up meeting people, especially in the scene like that. You're like always one person away from someone that's internationally known.
Right. Yeah, and Richmond's scene has definitely had some great notoriety, you know, amongst other hardcore scenes and punk scenes and the rest of the country and even around the world. So it is really cool to have those connections. So you were drinking a lot then, and
I was.
what was your like nutrition like at that time?
Fried pork chop sandwiches, 2 chili cheese, you know, cheeseburgers and everything. And you know, I was able to do that for a long time.
Right.
And then, you know, we'll fast forward to whenever you want. But literally it all 5 years ago came to a head at 45. So this crazy lifetime almost. I feel like I've lived 2 lives.
Yeah.
And so this crazy lifetime ago. Yeah, if I never met a fried anything I wouldn't eat. You know.
Yeah, I've been there for sure. So let's talk about that. So
Sure.
what happened when you were 45 that had such a major impact on you?
So at 45, I go in for blood work at patient first, and I get blood work back, and I have this lady doctor that comes in, says, well, Mr. Mcpherson, you're 45, and all of your markers in your blood are borderline high. Like, if you come back next month and they're like this, you're gonna get on a whole bunch of medication. And she said to me, I'm not telling you to go vegan, but you need to eat a lot more salads and start exercising. And for that statement, it was a real gift, because a prior doctor there had kind of planted the seed a little bit. He knew that I was into like hardcore music. He was really cool, and he said, have you ever heard of this book, Meat is for Pussies?
Really? A doctor told you that?
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay.
And that was probably about a year before her. But when she said that, a light came on. Not to mention that my good friend Bill Thiedman had been vegan at that point 27 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I had had vegan Thanksgiving. He had made that. I mean, I would eat it, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, he would come to town or whatever, and it was from China Panda, mock chicken lo mein, mock whatever, and it was glorious, you know. I ate it. I didn't have a problem with it. But at that point, man, you know, I'm a father of two, I'm married, I'm 45.
Approximately what year is this?
5 years ago,
Okay. What is that? Like
2018.
18. Okay. Yeah.
And that was December 1st.
Uh-huh.
So by December 4th, the Monday, that morning, I met some good friends for faux breakfast. We had like a really cold day, and we were going to be outside.
Yeah.
And I love pho. So I said, why don't we go get breakfast first, and then, you know, go get to work.
Yeah.
And that was the morning I said, yeah, I'd like the, you know, the vegan pho and this, and that was December 4th, and it's been that way ever since, man.
Amazing. So where'd you go for your pho?
I think it's called Viet Cong. It's South Side.
Okay.
I don't think it's open anymore. I think it got shut down.
Yeah,
But,
that's too bad. There are a few other places in town for pho. In Carytown, that's the one that's closest to us. That's the one I go to the most often. But I know that there's other ones out, like on the West End, that are really good too.
Pho Thien Pho too. Pho Thien Pho and Taco.
Yeah. Potato.
I know them all.
Yeah, they're great. And definitely a lot cheaper than the Carytown location.
You mean the place right across from the Bird?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good place.
It's a good one. Yeah, Pho
that's
Lucas. Yeah, I like them too.
We'll have to do that sometime.
Oh yeah, for sure. Prior to going vegan, or maybe this was after, you had like a heart attack scare, right?
It was interesting. Actually, I went vegan, and within a few weeks, I had all this energy and I didn't know what to do with it. So I started noticing I was bouncing around all the time. So I started walking around my house, and actually around the neighborhood, sorry. But I started walking around my neighborhood, and it was about a mile. And I kept walking until I got to 5 miles. And once I hit 5 miles, I would jog in between mailboxes, and then a quarter mile, half mile, full mile, and then one day I ran 2 miles, and that was the first time in my life.
Wow.
And so I kept going that rate, got up to 5 miles, would do that 3 or 4 times a week, and then wanted to learn how to freestyle swim, and eventually got a tri-bike. And then it's been ever since in love with triathlon.
Okay.
And I'll get to the heart stuff.
Yeah.
But I saw on a former podcast, I think you and I were both kind of influenced a little bit with John Joseph's
Very much
journey.
so.
Yeah. So the crazy thing, while I'm getting this information from that doctor, you know, I guess because all our phones listen to us, boom,
Yeah.
on YouTube, Ironman pops up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a great doc. Yeah.
It's great. I watched that and was like, wow, you know, this is possible. I'm like 45, but this might be possible, you know, and I reached out to, through Instagram, Samantha Murphy, like John Joseph's coach, because I started following Evolve Coaching Systems on Instagram.
Right.
And just asked very basic questions here and there, and she started following my tile company back because it turns out she loves tile. Yeah, so that was cool. And eventually, after I had been running 5 miles whenever I wanted, and really started to feel the lights come on, man, you know, and that love of velocity, that's when I just simply texted her, tell me about this, you know, what would be the next steps if I wanted to do this. And she, this person that didn't really know me, said, hey, why don't you give me a call? I'm available on this day after this time and we'll talk. And it was great because she didn't try to like sell their coaching structure or anything like that. She legitimately said, well, you're close. Keep going with the swimming.
Right.
Get a watch. You gotta buy a bike. And, you know, after you've acquired those things, you know, contact me back and we'll talk further. So I did. And that was like in October of 2018. And so I started getting coached by one of her coaches, my coach, Scott Colby. Shout out to Scott. And he's been my coach ever since.
And Scott is with the Evolve Triathlon group?
Yes, Evolve Coaching.
Okay. Is Samantha affiliated with them?
She started it.
Okay.
Yes. Her whole ball of wax, she made it from nothing. It's really cool.
And is John Joseph one of their sponsored athletes?
She is his coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've started following them on Instagram as well. You know, we have a similar name, which is a bit ironic, but that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, they seem like a great group of people to be a part of, and I know they support triathlon athletes all over the country and around the world. So it's really cool that you found them and you've been able to be part of that community for so long.
It was really amazing to see how welcoming that community was. All athletes, man. You know, now you meet a lot of people that are cyclists. And
right.
It's like we're all crazy and we're all trying to do this thing, and it was just wonderful because a lot of times you have a preconception of what you think an athlete should look like or be able to do, and this group really does look at the individual. Now, there's some cheetahs that are amazing on that team, and I just watch them in the tracker like, wow, you know, look at that, you know. And wonderful thing about that group is they treat everyone as an individual. They'll push you,
Oh, for sure.
but they treat everyone like an individual, and they deeply care.
Right. So prior to becoming vegan and getting into running, you hadn't done any running before that?
No, sir.
Wow.
I would say at most maybe a mile
Yeah.
if I was lucky,
Yeah.
and was like, God, this sucks.
You did say that you were like going to the gym, so you were like comfortable lifting weights to some extent, but like
Right.
doing cardio was not
Yeah,
part of
no.
that workout plan.
Yeah. Maybe a bike to get to and from Carytown
Yeah.
or something like that, but no,
Yeah.
no, man, I'm not running.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely sort of had the like opposite experience where I did start getting into running because I wasn't really comfortable at first with like lifting weights and strength training because I didn't really know what to do. I couldn't afford a trainer at the time,
Yeah.
but I knew I could run. And people who I was friends with like recommended like running for weight loss. So, since that was something I wanted to pursue, like losing body fat, I got into running for the purposes of that initially. And, I ran my first 5K and then I was able to run a 10K,
Man.
but
Yeah.
I couldn't get past the 10K distance without feeling overly fatigued. And
Okay.
so I was like trying to figure out like what I could do to improve my endurance, and I came across this documentary on Netflix called Food Choices, and it featured John Joseph as well as
Right on.
some other athletes like Rich Roll
Yeah.
and other doctors as well, like T. Colin Campbell and Michael Greger, and they really spoke to the health benefits as well as the performance benefits of a plant-based diet. And it was sort of like an early precursor to like What the Health and Game Changers, those
Right.
types of more modern
Amazing.
documentaries.
Yeah.
But they spoke to how a plant-based diet is much more alkaline than a animal diet, which is much more acidic. So the plant-based diet causes less inflammation, which makes your recovery time better, and generally helps with endurance as well. So I figured, great, this is probably what I need to be able to get to that next step of like trying to do a half marathon. So
Right on.
I agreed. I watched it, and then I showed it to my partner at the time. We watched it through again. I watched it twice that evening, and I told her I wanted to be vegan. She said she wanted to be vegetarian, and we were going to wait until the start of the next year in 2017. It was about like October, November at that time.
Which is really brave because all the holidays are
Yeah.
right there, man.
Yeah, and I guess part of us wanted to wait until after the holidays to like really kick it off and start the year with this new lifestyle. And I know like even on like New Year's Eve of 2016, I was eating meat and cheese
Right.
for like, I don't know, part of me was kind of nervous about giving it up, but I also knew like deep down it was something that I wanted to do. So after the strike of midnight, it was hands off, and
That's it.
I never looked back. There had been some slip ups here and there where like I didn't know that there would be cheese on that thing,
Yeah.
or like there might be eggs in that like veggie
Yeah.
burger, so that
Yeah.
type of thing. But I read those off as learning experiences, and it's helped me be so much more aware of the food that I'm putting in my body and how it makes me feel. And since switching vegan, I was able to run a half marathon. I've run a few half marathons, and I eventually ran a full marathon, and I've even done one ultra marathon.
Right on, man. Which marathon?
The one I did was in 2019. It was a trail marathon, actually. It was part of the North Face Endurance Challenge at Great Falls Park in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. I did it with my friend David, who was my training partner as well. He was helping me train the whole time. We did our trail runs at Pocahontas State Park. He surprised me like the day of the race that he was going to also be doing the race with me. And I'm so glad that he did, because it was really helpful to have his support like the whole way, even through like the race. Yeah.
So last year, not to jump around, but last year I did my first marathon.
Awesome.
And that was the Philadelphia Marathon.
Wow.
My good buddy that I met through triathlon with Evolve, Mitch, signed me up for it. And so I said, okay, we have the same coach.
Okay,
and
nice.
I said, I'm texting Scott. I'm telling him you're doing it. You know? So we did it.
That's
and
great.
Man, that was brutal though.
Yeah.
It was like 23 degrees, 23 to 30 degrees, up to 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. Whew. And it was so cold that when they like threw the cups down at the aid stations, it was creating a sheet of ice.
Oh my gosh.
So they had to keep putting salt on it, you know, so that it would
keep it from freezing
so
up.
that people wouldn't be ice skating.
Yeah. So have you done any other marathons since then?
Not since then.
Okay. Yeah. I attempted to do the Richmond Marathon when it was at Dorey Park. I believe that was in 2021 or 2022. Unfortunately, I DNF'd because I was having some really bad knee pain, and that was like around my 18 miles or 18 or 19 miles, and I just didn't have the heart to continue, and I didn't want to risk like further injury.
Right.
But I definitely want to do it again.
Why does it have to be at 18, right?
Yeah, right.
18 was hard for me too, like hamstrings started locking up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, quads, and even in the cold, just all the salt I could get. And
Yeah, absolutely. It is a hard distance for sure. And, you know, once you get closer to 20 and beyond, you know, you really have to like be well trained for that. And
I agree.
At that time, I wasn't adequately trained for it. So couldn't get it done, but definitely would like to do another marathon. And since then, I've been doing more cross training, longer bike rides, as well as getting more into strength training, which has been really helpful for me in my overall health and wellness. I did this vegan superhero academy program in 2021 to 2022, and I found them through Facebook, and they create a customized nutrition and training plan for people who are already vegan. So that was something that I really liked, and the people that I worked with were really great. My coach, Emma Sateri, she was based in Australia, but we would have weekly Zoom chats.
Right.
We also like texted, and she was able to give me feedback on like my form videos that I took at the gym, and it was just so great. And I posted my progress on my Instagram, and I lost about 50 pounds from doing that program. And you know, I put some weight back on, but I've been able to maintain my body composition fairly well. My weight right now is around 195.
Right. Me too.
So I'm trying to lose a little bit more body fat and build more muscle mass. That's where I really want to be going. But it gave me the tools to, you know, better understand my nutrition and my protein needs, and just have a more balanced diet. that will allow me to achieve those goals.
Yes. The Evolve coaching system also believes in macros, and I'd like to say I'm wonderful at it. I am not. There are days where I'm driving a lot, and yeah, I will go to Chipotle and get a Sofritas burrito and go, yeah, I'm gonna eat half. No, it's all gone. And but that is something that I think I'm going to have to dial in to be able to do Ironman Maryland.
Yeah, for sure.
Ironman Maryland is my first attempt at a full.
Thanks for watching Evolve Podcast. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors. Evolve Goods was founded on the ethos that this podcast was started on, pursuing personal growth with a positive mindset. Our clothing are a reflection of that. Our first line, the Standard, which launched earlier this year, is now available on our website, evolvegoods.co. And we will be launching our second line this summer called Soak It Up. So follow us on Instagram at evolvegoods.co and check out our website for more clothing drops coming soon. This podcast is also sponsored by True Nutrition. Use Evolve Podcast to get 5% off all True Nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I recommend the cookies and cream flavor in heavy strength, and I add it to waffles, oatmeal, and protein shakes. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because their supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit truenutrition.com to supplement your workouts and nutrition. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 10% off all weight train and athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. They have great clothes for the gym wear, for men and women. Visit weighttrain.com for all your gym gear needs. Last is not dead yet. Use code EvolvePodcast to get 15% off all clothing and accessories. The goat shorts and shirts are some of the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops you're stoked on. Visit notdeadyet.com for clothing to remind the world you are not dead yet. Now, back to the show.
We have your Ironman 70.3 medal in front of us from the Blue Ridge race that you did.
Right.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How was that experience? Can you talk about that?
Sure. I think that experience was huge because you had mentioned the heart thing I had told you about prior.
Right.
So to go back just a little bit,
Sure.
when I was first starting with Evolve Coaching Systems, we progressed. Several months went by, 9 months, 10 months. I had a bike, I was swimming, and I was ready for the Virginia half Ironman in Williamsburg. And 3 weeks out from the race, I went into congestive heart failure out of the blue on a Sunday night, just sitting on the couch. So that transpired into Monday morning, being in the ICU and fighting for my life. And apparently it did not look good.
And you still don't know why that happened,
No.
right?
I had about a 7% chance of survival, apparently. And that was on a Monday, 4/15/19. And by Friday, the 19th, 4/19/19, I'm in a regular hospital room ordering marinara and watching The Godfather, you know, and wheeling around an IV, and I'm out of the ICU, and no answers, no scarring, no abnormalities, no electrical issues, nothing.
And no issues since then.
No, sir.
Wow.
So the significance of the Blue Ridge was it was the Virginia race that I had set out to do in Williamsburg, but Williamsburg wasn't happening anymore. So the Virginia race kind of closed a chapter in that story, similar to Chattanooga, which was my first half Ironman. But the crazy significance was I didn't request a bib number. I just left it up to fate. I thought about it. I had my first bib number from Chattanooga tattooed on my arm, kind of as an homage of that journey.
Love that.
And it was mainly because of what I had done to get to that point, because to start this journey in 2018, almost die, go through different injuries, having to start over and over and over 3 or 4 times because of different injury unrelated to anything to do with the heart, collapsed arch, pulled groin, all kinds of other little things, and to get there and do it and finish it and to move forward, you know, because the craziest thing about the heart stuff was I didn't know if I had a grenade in my chest just waiting to go off at any given time. So on the run in Chattanooga, at the end, it was incredibly emotionally heavy.
I bet.
Because the gratitude and the, am I being selfish? Did I cheat death? Which I did, but every April 15th, I try to take that day off if I can, and I try to celebrate that day because it's a life changer. Yeah. But getting back to the Blue Ridge, they gave me the bib number of 419.
Oh, wow. That is something.
So that was pretty intense.
Yeah.
You know, when you survive almost dying, like legitimately almost dying, it does feel like it is just so close at any given time.
Right.
And, you know, I was on that bike ride in the fog, coming down the mountain at 30 some odd miles an hour, and just wondering, like, you know, is death coming to collect? But
you never know.
I didn't think so. I knew that with that bib number, it was okay, kid, get back to it. You know, it's time to really put things down, which is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
But that race was difficult because that bike is just brutal, and it was first race of the season. My fitness wasn't exactly as high as I wanted it to be, just because of work-life stuff, you know, craziness. Man, it felt good though to get to Roanoke and get an Ironman village, and it's just so positive, Joe. I mean, I don't know if you visited one of these races, but man, everybody is positive.
Yeah.
You know?
I had the privilege to volunteer at one of the Williamsburg half Ironman races. It may have been the last year that they did it, though I didn't know that at the time. Can't remember if that's the case or not, but I did get to volunteer at the athlete check-in station.
Yeah.
And I definitely sensed a lot of positive vibes. Everyone was really happy to be there and was really thankful for our help, and it was definitely a cool environment. And I loved seeing all the athletes like checking in with their bikes and like
Right.
getting them set up in the transition stations. So I think it helped me with my visualization for getting to that point.
Right. And I think one thing I definitely don't want to forget to say is, when all the hard stuff happened, my coach and Sam, they were just combing over the data. They were devastated,
Okay.
and here's two people that, because there were no answers, like, oh, you needed a XYZ and you'll be good,
Right.
because there were all these unknowns.
Right.
They could have legitimately said, hey, love you, man, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't, because there is an unknown, I can't do it. And you know what? These two people never did that. Scott has been my coach since day one. He has been there emotionally through all of it, through the real lows and the real highs.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been plenty of them.
Yeah.
But I think when you embark on this kind of training and you evolve into who you become and you make a deal to meet the person you want to be in 6 months, and you meet that person, and that person has been rained on, sleeted on, and gotten a run done, or been exhausted and still gone and swam in a pool for 2,500 yards, it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's steel sharpens steel, I guess. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to give them that for sure, because like I said, man, anybody could have walked away at any time and said, I just can't do this.
Yeah, for sure. And it really speaks to their character. And it just goes back to that sense of community that we spoke about before,
Right.
really supporting all the athletes and all of the athletes supporting each other. I think that's really powerful.
And there's a bunch of vegan athletes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
My
I know
coach
there
is
are in
vegan.
general, but you mean
On the team. My coach is, and Samantha is, and so that was the other thing that attracted me after watching that video was,
Uh-huh.
oh good, no one's gonna try to talk me out of this. They're gonna guide me and support me on this
Yeah.
thing because the lights are on now and I feel amazing.
Right.
And I don't want to be talked out of it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so definitely a lot of plant-based love, man. It's good.
Well, I'll definitely have to look into that further. I didn't know that they were, largely plant-based as well. That's just another cherry on the sundae, I guess you could say. Why did you decide to get a coach in the first place?
I like the accountability
Mm-hmm.
and also trying to be responsible with something. You can get a book, you can read a few things, but I really liked the positive feedback and man, it's a wilderness.
Yeah.
And to do it right, you need someone that's done it and can guide you and let you know.
Right.
And you need that voice of reason too. Are you hurt? Are you injured? Are you, trying to wimp out, or is it legit?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
and I feel like if you're gonna do any of this stuff, it is just so worth the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just set it and forget it, and then you have this structure that is pushing you forward with training peaks and
Right.
I think you wear a Garmin too.
Yeah,
Shout out to
I do.
Garmin. So it's good to have that accountability, and these people, they want your goals just as bad as you do.
Right. And they help you with like planning all your workouts.
Absolutely, he creates all the workouts. I just have to show up and do them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Looking ahead, your next race that's coming up is going to be a full Ironman.
Ironman Maryland. It'll be
Maryland.
my first. Yeah.
Sorry, when is it?
It is September 16th.
And how's training going so far for that?
Hey man, we're showing up.
Yeah.
Even if you're tired, even very tired. I wound up driving over 16 hours in 3 days. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and yesterday rather. And still did the 45-minute run I was supposed to do last night. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't exactly what Scott wanted, but I still got out there and got it done. And
good.
so, in so many ways, training is going good as far as pushing. And he told me, you got to show up, man.
Right.
You know, because a full is a full. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no phoning it in.
No, definitely not.
And I want a good experience, and the only way to do that is to get that fitness level up.
Right.
You know,
Got to do the work.
But I mean, it's nuts to be able to swim 2,700 yards in a workout, and we're going up. You know,
Right.
it's exciting.
I'm sure. Yeah. How does your wife feel about all of this? Is she an athlete as well?
She officially loves the assault runner that I bought and then asked for forgiveness later. I bought that a year and a half ago, and she finally started getting on the treadmill every day. She'd been vegetarian for years.
Okay.
When we met, even, she was so pretty. I was like, oh yeah, I was vegetarian for a while. Yeah. And now I'm vegan. So I feel like that washed itself clean.
I think so.
But she is definitely into some, I think she calls it Tabata training. She likes that kind of movement, different stations and things like that. She's a mom, and you know, I keep trying to tell her, you know, please take time somehow out of all of our madness and take care of yourself. But she has been incredibly supportive over all of this, watching me like change my life, and then seeing me able to do these things and run 5 miles, and she's been there every step of the way. And when we didn't know what happened and I almost died, I mean, any wife could legitimately say, or partner, whatever, could legitimately say, hey, I can't take it.
Right.
I don't know, they don't know, but I'm the one that buries it.
Right.
And I can't do that. You have those goals for yourself, and that person that you are, that candle in you, and you have to keep lit. But when I finally got we don't know, she told me, because the cardiologist, the Monday I was leaving, said, you just don't understand. It's a miracle you're here. If you would not have changed your lifestyle, more importantly, your diet, and gone vegan, and been in the shape you were in, because this happened 3 weeks out of Virginia half Ironman. So I was already running half marathons as a workout.
Right.
And he said, if you would not have done that, statistically, you would have been dead, because you would have had 20% blockage, and that would have done it when you have an oxygen level of 74, an ejection fraction of 40 something. Like, it was real close. And we're standing in the kitchen one morning, and she says to me, I can't tell you not to do it, because it's what kept you here.
Yeah, it's
you
worth
built
it,
a body that survived death, and that was so hardcore. Like, bringing it back to the hardcore movement, like, you know, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's so sick, and like very affirming too, of like your decision to pursue this lifestyle of being an Ironman. Like, really the weight of what that actually means.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's like you're running with a ghost, you know, you're cycling with a ghost. And I feel like, you know, last year after Chattanooga, I did Atlantic City half, felt good, did the full marathon, and still was dragging this ghost with me every step. And then I'm given that bib number at Virginia, and some people will disregard that, but that's because you don't want to. But that was not an accident, man. Those bib numbers went up to 1,000 something, and that was the number given to me, and I really feel like it was wind in the sails, man. It was keep going. You know, you're on the path, and I'm not some ultra athlete at this stuff. You know, I am not the fast guy. I'm not a cheetah. I'm not a dolphin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll grind something down. You know, because I like that. I like not breaking. And in the back of an ambulance, I could have had $1 million sitting in a satchel, and it wouldn't make any difference. It was fitness that kept me here.
You have the word "hold fast" tattooed on your knuckles. Why did you get that tattooed? Like, what does that mean for you?
So that basically for me was what I have already done. I've had to hold fast. But to be honest, I think it was harder to survive almost dying than anything I've ever done, because it just changes your perspective on so much. It's a fork in the road. There's a lot of gratitude, don't get me wrong.
I'm sure, yeah.
But to constantly keep yourself from falling into the heaviness of that experience and hold fast, for me, is that concept of just lashing yourself to that mast and going forward. And for me, it is about persistence. It is everything to do with moving forward. You know, do not stop, keep going.
Yeah.
And that for me is what I've really been focusing on this training cycle for the half, because that's what I want. I want to grind everything down and get to the end of that. And then probably 3 days later, we'll be picking out another race, because apparently that's how it goes.
How old are your kids now?
12 and 16.
Okay, so they are very much aware of what dad is doing and like what dad has been through, right?
Yes. I had a real heart-to-heart with them probably last year. You know, because you love kids and you don't want them to understand the depth of things, but I kind of tried to hide that from them during that time, which I don't know if that was the best thing or not, but now they understand the gratitude, you know, and I do try to do more family board game nights, even if I'm not into it or whatever. And I don't do the best all the time.
Sure.
I'm not gonna say, oh, my life changed, almost died, and now I'm super dad.
Right.
You know? I mean, I'm training, I own my own business. I'm trying to show them you have to go and do things and enjoy life as well.
Right.
But yeah, they do understand the gravity, and I've tried to give them the best lessons out of that, which was being fit and having a drive will make things happen. You have to make things happen.
Yeah.
They
And I
don't
think
happen sitting on the couch.
Yeah, and I think the best lesson that you are giving them is your example, like how you're living your life. And, of course they, you're still their dad to them, so they'll probably take that with a grain of salt, but, it does make an impact on kids who are so impressionable, and providing that positive example is just huge to their growth and development.
And one of the things I try to do is, it's not like I'm David Goggins and every day I just am that guy. I'm not, but every day, even if it's not 100% what I wanted for the day, like last training cycle, there were times where this or that happened, and they got to see that, like, man, I knew I should have just gotten up 2 hours earlier, or whatever. I've tried to teach them not just victory, but hey man, you gotta own some things and move forward, and at the same time not get too hard on yourself. Hold yourself accountable, but don't be too hard on yourself. Life happens, and you've got to be able to adapt and move forward. Yeah. That's all there is. You know?
It's a great lesson. And I'm curious to know how you apply that to your personal business as well.
So the tile industry is very interesting. Especially during COVID was fun. I decided I didn't own a tile company anymore. I owned a professional whack-a-mole business. I felt like I was doing that a lot, whether it was material or projects not being ready but on schedule, or schedule not being right, or whatever. But the interesting thing is that endurance mindset. There are a lot of times I put the hashtag tile is an endurance sport, because you start and you finish, and you have to stay on task.
Right.
And Joe, that's what I wanted to tell you actually about the kid thing. I told him what I'm most proud of is I can do hard things, and that's not just because I did it once.
Right.
It's because I do the work every day to one day be able to do something really hard. Yeah. And tile is really hard. Don't do your own tile. Call us.
Yes, definitely. Call. What was your business name again?
Mcpherson Tile and Stone LLC.
Mcpherson Tile and Stone.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And I saw on your website your work was featured on season of Homeland, right?
Yes, a good friend of mine, Donovan Greer, was working on the movie sets, and one day he called me and said, "Hey man, we don't have anybody that can actually do tile here. And this is going to get really featured in Homeland. Can you come and do some bathrooms for us?" So we actually tiled like 2 or 3 bathrooms on the movie set, and we also did a backsplash in the Walking Dead, not the original, but the Fear the Walking Dead.
Okay.
Yeah, we did this crazy black backsplash.
So we're going to move towards wrapping up. Just have a few more questions for you. What would you say is your why for what you do in your life, whether that's running your business or training for races, being vegan? Why is all of that so important to you?
It sounds kind of strange, but I have a gift. And that gift is I'm able to not lie to myself. And when I was given the choice with the health, back then, there are so many people that we know that would, shuck it off and be like, whatever, I'll take the pill.
Yeah.
But I knew, I don't know why, but I knew it, that it was that life or death situation. I do not know why. And I just imagined that I was a rat swimming in a 55-gallon drum halfway filled with water, and I cannot stop as far as persistence. Now, the why is interesting because it's changed, and it's most characterized during the beginning of training for a half Ironman. My coach actually said, the medal is a medal, it's one day. You're gonna fall in love with the training, and then you'll see who you really are.
Right. It's about the process and not the destination.
It's a process, and that's become my why, and I'm proud of that, because our society teaches us that it's always the end, the end, the end.
Right.
Well, I wanted to own all of it, and I had to start by walking. And now I'm training for a full Ironman.
Incredible. Next is PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who inspires you to keep a positive mental attitude?
So, positive attitude. It's really somebody that I think really inspires me to try to stay positive is definitely my wife. And also one of my guys on one of my crews, shout out to Bruno, he's always positive, you know, and it's just great. But I've found that when you're positive, you attract positivity and positive people.
I found that to be true too.
Yeah.
And is he on one of your work crews for your business?
We work together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next is Mindset Moment. What is a quote or tip or phrase that you use that inspires you to stay positive in personal hardships?
I love it. During a race, I have two. Number one, this too shall pass. And then, as sappy and whatever as it sounds, you know, D.H. Lawrence, Self-Pity, that poem, that even though I'm an English major, regrettably I can say this, when I saw G.I. Jane, that movie, right, with Demi Moore, Viggo Mortensen saying that poem, self-pity, I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself. A small bird will drop dead, frozen from a bough, without ever having felt sorry for itself. Those two things get me through when it's hard. You know, but this too shall pass, because time is so interesting, and endurance, and being able to outlast the pain and knowing that, yeah, this sucks really bad right now.
Right.
But in 45 minutes, I get to eat a good old vegan pizza covered with all kinds of stuff,
Right.
you know, to celebrate. That's what's so cool about it.
Where can people connect with you if they want to follow along with you on your journey?
The best place to connect with me on Instagram is @SinkerSwimBikeRun. That is primarily anything to do with triathlon. Or for the company, it's @Mcpherson Tile and Stone LLC.
And you also have a website for your business as well?
I do.
And it's the same thing, I believe.
Yes,
right?
sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you,
It was
Matt.
great talking to you.
Great. Let's go get photos sometime.
Definitely.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. Follow @evolvedpodcast.co on Instagram for weekly updates. Subscribe to Evolved Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and like your favorite episodes. Production and editing by Joe Fitzpatrick. Our theme music, Endless Cruise, is written and performed by Fingers, spelled F1NG3RS.